Hello, this video is about how I first discovered holographic breathing. I'm recording in nature, so you may hear some noises around. Anyway, I taught Tai Chi and healing and craniosacral therapy for quite a while, and around the end of the 90s I started to become very ill. I started getting lots of colds and flu and fatigue, and as this progressed I was getting continual chest infections and sometimes pneumonia, and my whole immune system was going down, so I really caught anything that was going around, and I had a really terrible fatigue with this. And at the time I didn't know, but I had contracted Lymes disease. I'd been probably bitten by a tick either in India or Germany, and had Lymes disease. I didn't know at the time that's what it was. I got the diagnosis later. But anyway, this proceeded, and my health just slowly left, really, until quite a few years later I was just spending a lot of time in bed and just breathing. I'd had to stop doing Tai Chi. I was doing a few healing sessions, but I was very tired between the sessions. And I tried everything I knew to try and recover from this, and in the end I didn't give in to it, but I let it take me. I'd lie in my bed just breathing, watching the sensations moving through my body, and I just allowed it to take me. So to get the experience of what it was, or to try and find out what was going on and why, or to just experience the karma, whatever it was had come to me, just to maybe fully experience the karma of it and to come to some kind of resolution, whatever that may be. And it's interesting because with Lyme's disease, my experience of tiredness is a bit more than tiredness. It is a bit like dying. I was watching a video of Lyme's disease sufferers, and a lot of them describe the fatigue as if you're dying. There's this feeling of dying. So I would just lay on my bed and let this energy take me, and it was like death. It was like waves of death, and it would come and it would go and it would come and go. And at a certain point there was an awakening. My energy started to rise, coming through my body, through my head, out through the top of my head, and it was a very strong experience. I've worked with this type of energy quite a lot in the past, but I'd never experienced it in this kind of intensity. And this went on for a couple of months, and the disease disappeared through this time as the energy moved through the neck, especially the neck. So a lot of the tiredness was in the thyroid, in the neck, gripping here, but as it moved through, went through the face, through the brain, through the head, and out to the higher energies, the pain went, the illness went, and this other thing was going on instead. And it was strong. It was very a bit like taking LSD, I guess, something like that, hallucinogenic, where everything you look at looks amazing. A tree, you can see the life in it and the sap rising and it breathing, and an extra dimension to it when a bird takes off. It's just quite amazing. Everything, it looks amazing. And I spend my time just walking in nature through this time. And there was one, it's very hard to communicate with people when this kind of thing's going on. So I did stay in nature, and there was one person that I visited occasionally that was able to talk to about what was happening. And I was also seeing a cranial practitioner through this time. So anyway, it was interesting that as the energy went through, that the illness or the symptoms of the illness went. And anyway, it went on for a couple of months, and as I was coming down or coming back towards the end, I decided to, or someone had recommended a dentist, because I had some amalgam fillings that I wanted to get rid of, and this lady had recommended a dentist. So I went to this dentist, and he was happy to take these amalgam fillings out, and he also inquired why I'd specifically come to him. And when I asked why he was asking that question, he said because what he did mainly was orthodontics, to realign people's jaws and mouths and through their whole bodies, so they could become better from different diseases or illnesses. So I said, well, I've got chronic fatigue or something like that. I don't know what it is, but I don't want orthodontics. But I was happy for him to test to see how the position of my jaw was, and teeth and mouth, and he tested with kinesiology, and what he found was this whole area, the whole maxilla, the upper palate, the upper teeth, nasal passageways, the maxillary sinuses, this whole area inside was pulled back. So that is this area here. And because that was pulled back, because the jaw is behind that, it meant the jaw was also pulled back, and the TMJs, the joint where the jaw joins the cranium, was impacted, pressurized, and that meant the whole cranium was also held, and it held through the whole body. So as this was pulled back, the jaw was pulled back, and that was setting everything off. And he tested with applied kinesiology, and when my jaw was together in its normal place, and I put my arm up, he tested just weak. The arm just gave way, and in applied kinesiology, when the arm goes weak, that means it's out of a line or not working or not good anyway. And then he tested me with the jaw slightly forward, so the front teeth were touching like that, and that opened the TMJs. And when he tested, it was strong. It was very strong. But the interesting thing for me was when I brought my jaw slightly forwards like that, I started taking these really deep breaths up. I could barely stop myself, breathing, my lungs really open, my diaphragm. I really noticed the difference in my breath immediately. It was much deeper, so I knew there was something in it, but I didn't want orthodontics. He said it was going to be about 3 to 4 years of orthodontics, and it was going to cost really a lot of money, and I just was not interested in that route, and started to investigate that for myself in different ways to allow this area to come forwards. And with my background in Tai Chi and breath work, it was natural for me just to start breathing into this area as if it was a pair of lungs. And an interesting thing happened when I did that. as I breathed in to here, the lips were closed. You're breathing in normally, but it's as if rather than the air just going through and down to the lungs, it's as if this was all opening on the in-breath and closing like it was a pair of lungs. And a very interesting thing happened as I did that, was that it created a lot of energy, and I felt it going back into the cranial fluid in and around the brain, and that would build up potency, and then there was releases in the brain, and it would release down the spine and away, and much more than I could ever expect. It was really quite strong. And because I was working with this cranial aid, I said, well, I'll do this breathing and you tell me what you feel. So I just breathing with this area as if it was a pair of lungs, and afterwards she'd say, well, yeah, as soon as you started doing this breathing, the potency in your cranial fluid grew, and then in the brain, and then it would get to places where it would release, and then it would mirror and release down through the whole body. And as I was doing this, the symptoms of the Lymes disease was going. I wasn't feeling so tired. I was able to get around more, I was able to do more, I was feeling happier. I think, well, this is interesting. And also, when I was breathing in that way, she said the maxilla started adjusting, started opening and closing and moving, and generally opening up more forwards, which was what we wanted. So I was very pleased with it. Not only did I seem to be doing my own orthodontics, it was helping with the Lyme's disease. And it was at that time I got the diagnosis, diagnosed with Lyme's disease, and I knew from people who had Lyme's disease what a horrible disease it is. It often is misdiagnosed as MS or Parkinson's disease. In America, apparently, they're testing people with Alzheimer's disease, and about 80%, they're saying, of Alzheimer's disease is actually Lyme's disease, created from a tick bite. Don't ever get bitten by ticks. Bad news. So anyway, so I knew, and it's not curable. Medically, it's not curable. Just continual antibiotics. So I carried on breathing with this releasing, and feeling a lot better. And I decided to investigate this area. It's the maxilla here. It's the base of the eyes there. This is hollowed, not just the nasal passageways, either side. Here, in there, is all hollow. And I started investigating that area just to look at it. I did know the general idea of it, but I just started looking at pictures to try and understand why it was being so strong. And one of the pictures I looked in, it was a section through here. So it showed the nasal passageways, it showed the maxillary sinuses each side, and it showed the ethmoid, but it was a section through the middle there, because it stretches right back to here. It starts here and stretches right back to here. And I'll bring up that picture now. And if you look at the picture, it's a similar picture anyway. If you look at the picture on the left-hand side, it's got that section, and on the right-hand side, it's got a section through the chest, and you can see the similarity. It was marked to me, the similarity between the shape of the nasal passageways and the maxillary sinuses and the shape of the lungs and heart. And you can see from the picture that the maxillary sinuses look very similar to the lungs, and the nasal passageways looks very similar to the heart. You can even see like there's 4 ventricles there. And the dome of the roof of the mouth is the same dome as the diaphragm, and where the sinuses are placed in the face, the lungs have the same placement in the chest. The lungs and or in the torso, the lungs and heart have the same placement in the chest. So for me, looking at those images, I just thought, well, okay, the reason this is affecting my brain so much is, sorry, I have to check the time. The video can only go on so long. The reason it was affecting the brain so much is like the lungs and heart seem like a general energy for the whole body, and the sinuses and nasal passageways seemed like the lungs and heart for the face and for the brain. And I carried on because Lyme's disease attacks the brain, so anything that was going to address the fluids, the brain, the energy of the brain, I was happy to use, and the more natural the better, and the more I can investigate it myself the better. So I carried on, and this releasing a lot through my brain, really nice. But after a week or so, the energy was still going back into the brain, but it was compacting. It wasn't so much releasing down into the body, it was just building, and this started to feel a little bit uncomfortable. And this built, and it became more uncomfortable. And one night I was just sitting, meditating very quietly, and I was just thinking, if this is a natural form of breathing that's been given to me, there will be a natural way forward. So I was breathing into the nasal passageways, into the sinuses, like they were lungs, the same way as you've got lungs in the chest, lungs in the face. And it was releasing but building the brain. I just kept doing it softer and softer, and the softer I did it, the more energy it produced and the more compact it got in a way, and it just kept getting more like this. I mean, oh, there must be a way to it. Just doing very, very, very gentle, and at that point it reached full, and there was like a really blinding flash and a pop, and I thought the energy, it was the energy releasing, was that flash, and I thought it would go up, but it didn't. It came through the face, through the teeth, and down into the jaw, and fast and strong. It felt, I could feel the teeth as if they were coming out their sockets as this energy, because it went through the teeth, the upper teeth, into the lower teeth. It came from the brain, through the face, through the teeth, into the jaw, like poof, and whoa. And as this all lit up, something happened. The lips came together, the tongue came up on the roof of the mouth. On the in-breath, it was very gentle, not big movement, just small motion of the jaw gently opened. So I breathed out, the jaw gently closed. And this dynamic felt beautiful, and it wasn't a doing, it wasn't something I invented or orchestrated, just this sheer energy that had built up over a period of time, all releasing into the jaw in an instant, awoke a memory. It awoke something that had always been there. It awoke this motion and energy. This is the basic start of holographic breathing. This is the physical start of holographic breathing, this movement of the jaw with the lips closed and the tongue on the roof of the mouth. And I could feel as soon as this, and it was like, oh, that is so lovely, and all the energy cleared from my brain. And as the jaw was moving like this, instead of it just coming through here into the brain, it was releasing down through my body. And I could see that also energetically, if this area, the maxilla related to the heart and lungs, the mouth and the tongue is more the abdomen, and then the jaw is the pelvis and the lower energies. So this is more the middle energies of the heart and lungs, and then we've got the abdomen and pelvis, which are dropping down into the lower energies and the bone structure and the pelvis, which is more grounded. So rather than it just staying up here, the jaw gave it its earth. And I no longer had to breathe into this area as if it was lungs, because this movement of the jaw, automatically the whole face started breathing, every part, the whole brain, the cranium started breathing through the whole body. It's like every cell suddenly, oh, each cell opens, each cell closing. This movement of the jaw was communicating the movement of the breath through the whole body to every cell. It was no longer just staying here, it was working with the brain, it was working with the cranium, but it was working with every cell in the body. It was mirroring every cell in the body. And my Lyme's disease continued to get better. I was also working with a homeopath by this stage, and she was helping as well, but Lyme's disease was progressing and getting better. After 4 months, I got checked. I no longer needed orthodontics. This had all naturally opened up, and there's a bit on the facial alignment page from a student who also had the same thing and didn't need an operation. So anyway, this just lovely breath, oh, this is gorgeous, just breathing, every cell opening, every cell closing, breathing in, breathing out. And it was as if I'd done it from somewhere before. I couldn't stop doing this breathing. It was as if I'd known it from a past life. And I knew it was natural because I would wake up in my sleep, and I've been breathing in that way in my sleep. And it was like spirit guides and energies were talking to me. I'd wake up and I would feel these energies and the remembrance of them kind of giving me information, and the breathing going along. And this evolved into seminars, which I put some as downloads that people can do. And so the jaw had this breath, the sinuses, nasal passageway, which was a higher level, had a more refined energy to it, had this breathing, was affecting the body in different days. And one day it worked out, and it came up into the eyes, it came up into the ethmoid. And this very bright energy came in. This is like the upper body, it's the jaw, it's the earth, it's like the hara. Heart and lungs is more like the heart energy. And then when the eyes and ethmoid, this relates to the head, it relates to the intellect, it relates to the higher energies. It was like this bright light came in, a bit like Jesus had walked into the room. I'm not a Christian, my spiritual path covers everything, but it's that feeling. And this very much related through the brain, really helped with the brain and the Lyme's disease and this very refined energy. And this could see the face reflecting in different ways through the whole body, which again I teach in the different seminars, and that's why I call it holographic breathing, because the hologram of the face is repeated in the brain. It's like the encephalon, the top part of the brain. This relates to the lower energies, the back part, and it looks like the intestinal tract, the back part of the brain. The cerebellum looks like 2 lungs and relates to the sinuses. The pons in the brainstem relates to the nasal passageways. The thalamus at the top of the brainstem, which is like the brain for the brain, relates directly to the eye. So it's the same matrix, and all of the organs in the body fit together in matrix, and everything relating one way or another to these different energies. And then the earth is a reflection. There's seminars where we work with the earth and different organs through the body. But it was all reflecting this energy. And so I carried on, and it had basically started. So and after about a year, maybe 18 months, the Lymes disease seemed to have pretty well gone. I was still getting a lot of fatigue, and there was an edge of it till about 2 years ago. Discovered the holographic breathing about 2003, and about 2 years ago there's this bit that didn't quite go, and the homeopath found this at a much higher potency that she wasn't expecting and I wasn't expecting, and she gave me homeopathy for it, and I also worked with the images of the brain and different things just to help this go through. And then that also took a little while to go, and now the Lyme disease is totally gone. I don't need orthodontics. Ever since then I stopped teaching most things and just taught the holographic breathing. It's used a lot in birth and as a meditation and healing tool. It seems to cover all aspects of healing. There's this movement that goes through the body that is very similar to the movement of craniosacral therapy. It moves through the bones in the same way, and there's energetic qualities of all the different areas. It's a bit like Ayurvedic medicine. The awakening I kind of had before that went on for a couple of months. I'd had a lot of this in the past, but in much smaller ways, and this was really quite a big thing. But later, the lady I visited occasionally through that time, she said, you know that when you got really strong energy through that time, she said, I think that was the energy of the holographic breathing coming in, or that allowed it to start. And I think she's right. I think that created an opening for this, the physical manifestation of this. And ever since then, these different high energies and rising events, some people may call it the Kundalini, or energy rising and going up. The holographic breathing, there's a system there that contains and holds that energy. Since then, I've used it to contain and work with and heal with that energy, so it moves through the different energies. There is a strong energy going up, but it also relates to all the organs, it relates to the bones, it relates to the brain. And also, for me, in the whole world, there's kind of a disconnect here. The energy is not really properly getting up and out, and a lot of the tiredness people are getting here. With holographic breathing, because the face starts breathing, and the cranium starts breathing, and the throat starts breathing, it enhances this whole area and automatically joins through this gap and connects you more to the higher energies. And I think this is on a global level, the communication, the tiredness people are getting here. It instantly connects through there. And as soon as the face is breathing, the cranium and the brain is getting the nourishment it needs and evolving. You start evolving in a new way. The brain, more parts of the brain start waking up, start being utilized. And it is the body at a higher level. And then as it goes through, then you have the connection to the higher energies. So that is how the holographic breathing started. I think I have to stop now. I think the video is going to run out. It stops at half an hour.